I mean, I got them.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City Commission meeting of Tuesday, January 16th, 2024. Call the meeting to order and ask all of you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, sir.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Approval of the agenda with one change. We're going to eliminate item number 8 because we have not had an opportunity to interview candidates yet. We have a motion to approve as amended.
So moved.
Seconded.
And actually, I got to go back a step. I forgot the roll call. Mayor Pro Tem Rozell.
Present.
Commissioner Oldsman.
Present.
Commissioner Elder.
Present.
Commissioner Steinhardt.
Present.
Mayor Paul present. Now we have
Same motion, Mr. Mayor. Approve the agenda as amended.
okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I don't believe we have any communications. I don't see any elected officials. So we're going to move right to public participation. This is an opportunity for the public to address the commission for an item that is not on the agenda.
Hello, my name is Ron Stawas, live at 26332 York Street. I know this forum is for, it's a great forum for residents to be able to come forward and bring to your attention issues that they believe need to be addressed. And I also believe it's a great forum to come to the commission and to say thank you. Also for listening to what I had brought up in regards to a rodent issue on York Street. Thank you for listening. Thank you for the efforts and the help that you provided to resolve the issue. I also want to thank, who's not here, Mr. Wilson and Hank Berry, for taking the steps to address the infestation, to take care of the habitat issues that were involved, and also the issues of a food source. Hopefully the steps that they have taken will be, resolve this for the future. And I thought it's an appropriate thing for all the time that I come in and was speaking in front of you, and I know I was a pain in the neck, to also come in and say thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Max Levine, one of the owners of 7920 Concord. I'm here before the commission in the November meeting regarding the floodlight from our business property neighbor, the 1-800-PAIN-800 Level 3 Physical Therapy Building, shining on my backyard into my house. Since the last meeting, I have purchased a light intensity meter as was suggested by the commission, and I've measured it. It has measured at 0.6 versus the 0.1 that's allowed. The only comment I have to add about that is I have learned that light intensity is not linear, but is in fact exponential, so it's not just 6 times the allowed brightness, it is much more than that. I know when I sent that follow-up email in December, I was notified that the city attorney is going to be reached out to. I just want to state this is still an issue and there's been no change to the light at our home.
Okay. Thank you for the update. We are working on it.
Wonderful, thank you.
Hey, Jim.
I think Mr. Berry wanted.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just maybe give him this resolution. Sure. I did have a conversation as recent as today with the owner of the building, who is now back in town after being gone for most of December, and he has agreed that he's going to move the light down the wall substantially to the point where the bottom of the light is no higher than 10 feet off the wall. That should give Mr. Levine the answer that he seeks.
Thanks.
Wonderful, thank you.
My name is Donald Levine. I live at 25951 Dundee Road. I was going to speak to the same issue, but I will address a different issue. During the summer, some of you may have noticed, a bunch of posters appeared on posts all over Huntington Woods advertising somebody searching for a lost cat. Seemed perfectly reasonable to me. And as I walked my daughter's dog, as I do, I saw them and I didn't find them offensive at all. Well, as we know, on October the 7th, Israel was attacked by a terrorist attack and hostages were taken. And shortly thereafter, a number of pictures of hostages appeared on lampposts and other posts around Huntington Woods, including one directly in front of my house. I don't know who put them up. They didn't offend me. But shortly thereafter, a car saying Huntington Woods Code Enforcement appeared in front of my house, and the man in the car was taking down the posters. Not the cat posters, hostage posters. I guess they're offensive to somebody. Cats aren't. But it raised in my mind a question of selective enforcement. My son and daughter were complaining for 2 years. I'm glad to hear that this issue about the lamp is going to be addressed. How does the city decide which codes to enforce? Why not the cat posters? Why the hostage posters? Is there an answer?
Yeah, I don't think there should be, according to the pre-existing ordinance, if I'm correct, shouldn't be posters of any kind on a telephone pole. That's the idea.
I perfectly accept that. What I'm agreeing to is that the laws or the rules or whatever you want to call them should be enforced uniformly.
We all agree.
100%.
Why are the cat posters still there?
I wasn't aware. I have the posters, the hostage posters on the lamppost in front of our house, and I mean, my position on that is someone put them up, far be it for me, to interfere. But just understand that you were aware of the incident a couple months ago where there was an encounter between some of our residents and an individual who was scraping them off that became widely reported and somewhat, I don't want to say distorted, but I would say that the information about it was floating on social media changed the dynamic of what actually occurred. But I think one of the concerns is, and this is just my own take, is if you allow the hostage posters, which again, I share your view, but there's an ordinance that says those things don't go on public utility poles, period.
Totally understand.
And the problem would, as I think the city, some people view it, is that if you allow that, if you get people who have the other opposing view of all this, which is plenty loud, that pretty soon we're going to see that, then what do you do about that? So I think it's a balanced test, and I think the ordinance that we've already had, somebody asked me if this was a recently passed ordinance, and it's been around for a long time. I can't tell you exactly when it was passed, but I agree, everybody here agrees with you.
Yeah, I'm not disputing the ordinance at
100%,
all.
there should be
Nor the removal.
100%, there should be
Yeah.
no missing anything.
Right. I'd like to speak to one other issue that I brought up. And over a year ago, I remember sending something, having a discussion with this elder. As an observant Jew, I walk to services Saturday morning on days of holidays. I live directly across the street from the park, Mary Kay Davis Park, I believe it's called. It snowed last week, in case you hadn't noticed. It snows frequently during the winter, not as much as when I was a kid. But to walk from my house to my synagogue on Woodward, I have to traverse that park. Not the park, but the sidewalk. If I don't clear my snow, I think that's against somebody's rule. The city owns that park, I believe. That sidewalk is never cleared. I understand the city doesn't have the wherewithal to clean sidewalks all over the city like they used to, which I used to enjoy. I understand that. But that's a city-owned walkway, and it's treacherous. And so those of us who walk are forced to walk on the street. Well, it's more treacherous for another reason. So I just wonder, is there any way that maybe the city can clean that sidewalk by the park?
You talking about through the park?
No, not through the park. It's a sidewalk, goes straight down Lincoln. And it of course encompasses the park. So people that walk down Hendry suffer the same problem.
The difficulty with sidewalk clearing is that we don't do that on weekends because that's on overtime dollars. We
Yeah.
years ago eliminated that. We do it as we can get to it. It's difficult, and we can speak to Rocco and see if it's possible to arrange for the parks to be done, but I don't know if they have a way of getting the sweepers out to just the park locations without driving across the other sidewalks. And this particular storm froze, it became very difficult to deal with. Our sweepers don't even work.
No question. Let me be clear. I'm not asking for anything on a weekend. After all, as a taxpayer, I'm paying for the overtime. But, I mean, this has gone on for years, and certainly, other than the weekend, this particular snow, I agree, was a problem with all the ice that appeared on top of it. I'm still fighting that in my own home. But as a rule, the city has stopped cleaning its own sidewalk. So, just as your sidewalk in front of this building is cleared, I would hope that somebody would find a way to clear that as a hazard.
It's a valid point, we'll ask.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to items of business. First item is the Verigy feasibility study presentation. Hank, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll make an introduction for this. Basically, over the last couple of years, the city's been doing a feasibility study for upgrading our energy and everything, and making everything more green and adding some new fixtures and some new life and helping to reduce cost to the city of Huntington Woods. So what we've done is we've entered into an agreement with Verigy to do a feasibility study, which we now present to you. Thank you. Which we now present to you, which will be presented by Ed Saplala from Verigy. And then he'll take any questions at the end, and hopefully through this, then you'll get an understanding of what we've been doing, what this entails, and what savings in that we can hope to expect from this. So without anything else to do, Ed, if you'd like, do you have the clicker or?
It's on the stand.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Happy New Year, commissioners. My name is Ed Saplala. I'm a resident of Lake Orion, Michigan. I went to school at Oakland University. I was raised and grew up in Clarkston, Waterford area, and I still reside here. I love this community. I wanted to take the time to introduce the team that I brought with me today, which will be involved in this project. Tyler Grant, if you can stand up.
Hi there, I'm Tyler Grant. I've been in the construction industry for the last 7 years, the last 2 of which with Verigy, and I've been involved in this project for coming up on about 2 years now. So I'm looking forward to presenting to you today. Thank you.
Another engineer, Paul Wrights.
Hi everyone, I'm Paul Wrights. I'm a licensed engineer in Michigan. I've been with Verigy a short time, but I've been in the industry for 15 plus years.
And lastly, Michelle Hayes.
Hi, Michelle Hayes. I am the project accountant in the Eastern region and been with Verigy for 7 years. And I've had the pleasure of working in each one of our regions nationwide, so love it. Actually, I'm a neighbor to Huntington Woods. I just am down the road in Beverly Hills where I reside with my husband. So glad to be back in Michigan. I came back after being gone for 39 years in Arizona, so.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I've been informed by Hank that I need to compress my my presentation to about 15 minutes, and I know that you all have this information, so I'm not going to read it. I will just point out the highlights where I believe we need to pay a particular attention to, and I will do my best to move forward quickly. We've got 10 items that are on my agenda that, and again, just one important, I wanted to demonstrate the homework that we've done, where we started really 2 years ago. Kind of highlight on that, talk a little bit about your current energy use, benchmark this city with other similar cities, and you can see exactly where you stand. Touch a little bit about the existing conditions within the city and the facilities. Talk about some potential energy conservation measures that we see. We have suggested proposed improvements, some potential grants. We've got some financing scenarios, how we feel that, financially, what the picture looks like. Talk about the next steps and go right into the questions. We are at the feasibility stage. We're not in the proposal stage or anything like that. Our next step really is to ask for a letter of intent from the commissioners to go to final engineering and then involve contractors for final pricing. There's a pretty big list here. One item that I wanted to talk about, when we first got it called out to come out here, I was involved myself with Mr. Mark Wollenweber to look at this specific facility. We were having issues with the heating. Some of the systems were going down, and we found out that we had some funding issues, how we're actually going to get it paid for. And we worked with him before in past cities in southeast Michigan, and he says, hey, yeah, why don't you look at possibly looking at what we can do for the entire city to help fund this. We made a presentation back in October to this body, and at that time it was requested this project go out to request for proposals, RFQ, request for quotations or qualifications. It was advertised in Mitten, a statewide portal to request proposals. There was 3 or 4 that were interested, 2 that actually submitted, and we were selected. At that time, the city manager approved us to move forward with a feasibility study. And at that time, we really dug in and collected a lot more information with the facility group, the finance team back then, and also the city manager. Now, during that time, there were some changes in administration. We kind of got stalled a little bit. We regained a little bit more momentum the year 2022, and we were asked to represent our findings with the Sustainability Committee in August of 2022. And it was actually well taken. We were able to address a lot of their issues and questions that we had with that. And then it sat again for a little bit. Fast forward to 2023, we worked again with the administration. Everybody's busy. We were patient, and we started to reposition how we would actually come before this board to present, and that's where we're here today. In a nutshell, that's what all those 16 items are. Part of this Sustainability Committee, they have a 2019 energy plan that they developed. It's online, and we took the time to itemize all 13 of their goals. And in highlighting in yellow, we're addressing quite a few of their initiatives and their goals. This program addresses. I wanted to point that out. This is an actual accounting of all the utilities that are spent at all the buildings and properties throughout the city. At the time when we were collecting the data, this is data 2020, 2021, but what it does is it sets a baseline of what your consumption is. You're consuming roughly $136,000 a year. It's probably a little bit more today because the rates have gone up. Maybe some of the usage have changed. Energy rates have gone up. Again, this is an accounting of what you guys are spending. Benchmarking throughout to your neighboring cities, and really this is benchmarking throughout the entire country. Red in this line means that you're really above what the national averages are. In yellow, you're borderline, and green, you're doing pretty decent. So you can see just from this snapshot, there's an opportunity to actually be more cost conscious, tighten the belt, and see what we can do to actually help capitalize on saving energy. These are some of the things that we've seen as, again, these are pictorial information with regards to what we've seen out there. This is in this city hall. We've got aging infrastructure with this. Today, this unit is struggling to keep this building warm. I know that this air conditioning unit, you're kind of lugging it along, and you've got some issues here with regards to some crumbling insulation. You've got aging infrastructure with lighting, a T8 and electronic ballast. That's what you have here. They've actually stopped manufacturing that. Once the supplies have depleted, you'll have to change over to LED technologies. And part of what we're looking at is upgrading the entire city, including streetlights, to LED technologies. This is what these are: intelligent gathering devices. They're really data loggers that we set throughout the city. And we set them out for, I think, 2 to 3 months, and we collect data. And when lights are off, on and off, your temperatures they fluctuate up and down, and it gives us a general idea, really what you guys are doing. So when we make predictive measures of savings, we really know when the lights go on and off. We really know that, certain areas, geez, it gets down pretty cold. And also in areas where we know that it's occupied, it's still too cold. Things like that are able to extract empirical data to prove or actually support our solutions. This is a snapshot. All the buildings on the left and all the energy conservations to the right, where we see opportunity to improve your facilities. LED technology retrofits, water retrofits, building tune-ups, solar array installations, building integration. This is a temperature control system that brings it all to one front-end system. HVAC replacements, boiler replacements, HVAC zoning tune-ups, infrared heater installations, emergency generator installations, swimming pool technologies, water meter program replacements. A lot of these are opportunities to actually improve what you have. I can show you later in the following presentation, is that most of your HVAC equipment is either at or beyond its useful life, and I can show you data for that. This is just a little description of just very basic information of an explanation of each individual energy conservation measure. And at this time, what I want to do is I want to introduce or bring Tyler up here. He can further discuss some of these pictures that he put together.
Thank you, Ed. And I will try to keep this moving along here. So this is a high-level pictogram of what these improvements look like, roughly in this facility. So one of the proposed measures starting on the roof is solar arrays to offset the electrical consumption. Complete HVAC replacement, as Ed mentioned in the pictures showed, the HVAC systems in this building have reached their useful life. LED technology upgrade, so these T8 lamps you see here above you, some are different colors, some are on ballast, they make noise, they use a lot of energy. So the game plan there is to completely eliminate that ballast, update them with a bulb that uses a fraction of the current energy, and have those actually energy savings pay for the cost of that replacement, and then continue to fund future projects. There's a potential to look at EV charging stations, water conservation retrofits, so changing out valves on your sinks, toilets, things like that to use less energy. You have a pretty high water rate here, so those would be a great thing to hit. Building automation integration, as Ed mentioned, getting your HVAC, not even this building, but throughout the city, pulled into a common dashboard where you can A, easily see where problems are, B, schedule so you're not running things when they don't need to be running, or you immediately get alarms so you know things are down or a problem to address. As well as the letter G there, which is building envelope improvements. So sealing, weather stripping around doors, building penetrations, anything like that where you have cold air infiltrating the building or the tempered air exiting the building and escaping, or you're just having to spend more money conditioning that air. Similar story here. This is a picture of the rec center. Again, a lot of those same ECMs we saw for this building, but with a few different ones. For example, the swimming pool. So upgrading the pumps to be a more efficient pump, as well as on a variable frequency drive to ramp up or ramp down just as needed. As Ed mentioned, installing an emergency backup generator for that facility. Again, solar array install, some zoning tune-up on the HVAC, to fix spaces that maybe aren't getting enough heating or cooling. LED technology upgrades, replacing some of those select rooftop units. That's a building where not all of the HVAC system has reached their useful age, so we would just select and look at replacing the ones that are starting to fail and be on their useful life. Again, some building envelope and building automation, scheduling, bringing your run times together so you can operate the building as efficiently as possible. You've already got some EV charging stations there, but depending on their use, could look at expanding upon those, and water conservation retrofits. So we lumped those ECMs into kind of like categories for the buildings. These are budgetary projections based on industry standards and projects we are currently developing throughout the state of Michigan. So this scope looks at the LED lighting upgrades. So this would be the main buildings you see listed there, as well as your parks and the citywide streetlights. Converting those over to an LED technology, budgetary range would be somewhere around $160,000. And over the 20 years, would actually save $479,000. You would also be available, which are not factored into that savings, for rebates through energy provider for making those upgrades. Looking at the solar array installations, we've targeted 5 sites here. As you can see on the left, City Hall, Public Safety, Public Works, Library, and Rec Center. I know the Public Works or DPW building actually isn't built yet. But so this is what a proposed future solar array on that building, once that structure is built, could look like. We have the ability here to take advantage of Inflation Reduction Act savings. So even though you're not a tax-paying entity, you can actually get a credit just as you would for a taxpayer for doing these solar array upgrades, which we're targeting right around the 40% range. So the cost of that project would be just over $1.1 million is our budget, and the funding and savings would be $1.271 million, and those have a useful life of easily 35 years. The warranty actually goes through 25 years. That's why we listed the 25 years there. So this was lumping your HVAC related items together, so rooftop units, air conditioning units, boilers, things like that, along with the controls to run them and operate them efficiently, a backup generator in the building envelope to reduce the amount of air changes you have or the amount of air you need to temper each time. Those are the buildings listed out and the rough scope for each building that is included in that number. That total cost for doing all of those things would come to just under $1.9 million, and the funding and savings for that would total over just shy of $2.2 million over 20 years. For water conservation, these would be looking at, again, some of those swimming pool upgrades as well as water meter replacement throughout the city. Scope with the swimming pool upgrades, as I mentioned, the VFD pumps, upgrading it to a new chemical feed system. This will, make the water quality better for those swimming in it. Any differences in fluctuations in balance or as far from balanced start to, can be irritants on your skin, as well as it can reduce the life of the lining in the pool, and you may have to prematurely get that relined, which is not a small cost. As well as implementing a citywide water meter replacement, going to a technology such as automated meter readings, where instead of going house to house now, you could basically have one person who just drives to the end of the street and automatically collects all the billing data for those meters. And with that, I will turn it back over to Ed.
Now, what I wanted to do is kind of bring this full circle. The original there's a project matrix. That was what we had discovered working with Hank and really with regards to working with really all the departments, understanding their needs, understanding what are the possibilities, where are you having problems, what can we do to help the city. Our challenge is that how do we get all this paid for? So what I've been doing for a long time with Honeywell in my past and also with Verigy is that we have to calculate savings. How do we actually pay for this? And we've developed a self-funding model. What this is a table that shows the cost center of all these items where we're going to possibly save money. The second column is your current expenditure that we actually got from the facility team and the finance team. Actual expenditures, current expenditures, roughly 757,000, almost 758,000. The next columns in between is how are we going to affect with those energy conservation measures? How can we actually drive savings to our end goal? We would affect the current. There's current receivables on the water meters. That's also listed at $2.8 million. Through our actual implementation of energy conservation measures, which we guarantee, we believe we can offset all those items in the third column, totaling to roughly, that would be the proposed state. The actual last column is actually the difference between the current expenditures and what we're proposing under our project. The funding stream nets at around $240,000. So that $238,000, that is our funding stream to help fund this project. When we started to estimate the size of this project, we were looking roughly, again, this is our projected estimate, roughly around $5 million. We've got a IRA direct pay that would reduce that investment of $391,000. That would actually get paid off after the second year. We've got energy and water savings, street lighting savings. We're going to affect the city water receivables. That's $166,000. And then we've got operational costs, capital cost avoidance with the existing service contracts that you have. That's the maintenance and outside contractors, and also capital cost avoidance, which we've outlined as future cost avoidance. That let's say, for example, if this furnace were to go out tomorrow, you actually have to plan for that, and this takes into account. We've done some derivation of this 24,000 through some paperwork, and I'll show it to you later here. And this is the cash flow, how we demonstrate the actual savings. The actual savings you see is under savings total, $238,929. The first year we're assuming roughly about half of that savings during construction. But as you see, in the second column is the annual payment for that $5 million, which offsets the actual total cash flow. And on the far right is the cumulative cash flow after 20 years. We've got a positive cash flow of just under $700,000. But the goal of this project, which when I look at it from an engineer perspective, is how can we actually marry the needs versus the opportunity to pay for this program under a self-funding model like this. Does the project pay for itself? The answer is yes. One item I want to talk about, because the last time I was here, I listened loud and clear, myself and my colleague Dick Williams. There's a strong DEI initiative within the city, and Verigy also takes DEI very seriously. We actually implemented DEI Council nationwide and in 3 regions within our corporation. It is still in its infancy stage. It started in 2022. Each region has a council comprised of senior managers, executive vice presidents, and also treasurers that actually have initiatives of awareness within the organization, and we're currently working on processes and implementing our daily activities to implement DEI initiatives and how we actually conduct our business. And then finally, our other goal is to have it measurable, track our activity, and actually demonstrate, how we're doing with regards to our DEI initiatives. I wanted to talk about that. These are some of the things that we've actually proactively started looking at here, involving local entities, SBE, MBE, WBE, and also VBEs. Our intent is to engage that community as part of this project. Potential funding, tax exempt lease purchase, Public Act 119/2016. There is a law in place that I've used for quite a long time in my career. It allows cities and municipalities to enter into a lease purchase agreement that does not hit the county's indebtedness or bonding capacity, because it's actually paid for through guaranteed savings from a private entity. And it actually demonstrates that the project pays for itself under the existing operating budget, which this project does. And I've got the law in the next few pages. So this project would take advantage of this law that's available. Currently, I'm using this specifically at Calhoun County. They've taken advantage of this, and also at Jackson County. Federal grants at ARPA, I'm not sure whether or not that's available here, but we've used that in other of our customers, whether or not they're able to demonstrate or have monies available for ARPA contribution, especially if it's COVID related. Sometimes the HVAC, if it can improve HVAC, you can direct some funds there. Again, it's all a matter of availability. We're taking advantage of the Inflation Reduction Act that's enacted as law now. In fact, we're working with customers now to fill out paperwork. So we just finished a solar installation at Calhoun County, 2023. So they're going to be filing for direct rebate and direct payback in tax year 2024. Federal future grants that's possible out there, we're continuing looking at that, and then of course consumers and Detroit Edison rebates that are out there. Project benefits, this is proactive asset management. Your entire facility, every piece of equipment, has a life to it. We're looking at all of that and trying and really making an effort. How can we actually put you on a track to be proactive and really manage that asset? City of Huntington is beautiful. It does need maintenance. There are things that, and I'll show you some more other additional information that your facility is aging. It's how are you gonna get it done? How are you gonna proactively address that? It would be nice if we get this project done under your current operating budget, and that's the value, and that's the goal. Better maintenance practices for the city infrastructure, future-proof your assets for longevity and resiliency, and promote local economic development. And I conclude my presentation. One last thing I wanted to show, just this extensive. This is the House bill. I talked about the tax exempt lease purchase. You can read that at your leisure. And this is just an itemization of all the pieces of equipment, specifically HVAC. And I want to turn you to this column here. It says remaining service life. You see everything in red means it's already on borrowed time. On average, you can see this is the City Hall. You only got 1 year left. Here you're 1 year already overdue, 14 years overdue, 9 years overdue, 18 overdue at the recreation building. So what that tells me is that there's going to be a certain time where it's just going to fail. When it fails, what are you going to do? What we want to do is help you address that and proactively look at your existing budget. How can you redirect it to address these issues? I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question? Yep. So I think that the commission for a while has deferred a lot of this maintenance. I think there was a lot of question well, the economy certainly, and then a lot of question about what was going to happen with this property we're on. Would it be redeveloped potentially? And so we didn't want to invest in buildings that could potentially be torn down and rebuilt. But that's gone on for 15 years, nothing's happened. Like you mentioned, we're on borrowed time. I don't think we can put this off any longer. Some of the analysis you did was based on 20 years, you know, looking out and saying this. Why 20 years? Why not a shorter time frame for
Yes, sir.
recovery?
Well, first of all, when you look at system life, you know, like for example, if a piece of equipment only lasts 10 years, you don't want to look at 20 years. You want to look at 10 years, and you also want to look at the financing portion of that. If the project's being financed for 10 years, you don't want to look at 20 years. You want to look at only 10 years. This project is being financed for 20 years. The law allows us to do that. And most, if not all, this equipment has a system life of 20 years.
Okay.
If we look at 10 years, it probably won't pay for itself.
Yep.
But guess what? After 10 years, it's still generating savings.
Okay. And with regard to the meter reading upgrade, I mean, we have talked about this over the years about automating this meter reading. Now, I understand, I think this is what the gas company and power company does. You know, they just drive a vehicle down the street, the readings are all picked up, and that's great. Would there be any benefit through the system you're proposing where residents would be able to, through an app or something, be able to monitor their own water usage? Or is this purely something that communicates with a city vehicle to provide a meter read? Or do these meters kind of move to where everything else is going, where the resident may have some ability to say, look, I'm in Florida, could be a water leak at my house, or usage is way up, you know, those types of things?
Yes. The answer is yes. It's all depending on the city's need for transparency. That's number one. And number two is that there's, when I was working with Rocco, the original request was to look at drive-by systems. There is ability, and that's called AMR, automatic meter reading. But also, we also go to automated meter infrastructure. It's basically, it's gridded to like a matrixized real-time information. Once we do that, and also with regards to understanding, you know, the transparency of the portal, we'll have full autonomy to do whatever you would like. So it really it depends on how we go to this. The next step is how we engineer the system. You know, I really truly understand the specific needs and develop the scope of work. Once we develop that scope of work, we can get final pricing.
Okay, 2 questions left. Is this an opportunity to look at this for, say, like a la carte purposes and say, well, we like these 8 things, these other 3 things, not so much? Or is this an all or nothing? You either do everything in the proposal or you do nothing?
No.
Okay.
No, it's not all or nothing. Let me explain one thing here. If I could show you back when Tyler was presenting. You can see some of these, if we break them down, just from an ECM perspective, some of them have pretty good paybacks, like this lighting. You know, it pays for itself pretty dang quick. This is also pretty good. This too is pretty good, you know, and this is very powerful. You see that it's the savings $4 million. So in a situation like this, is that the meters actually help other projects. You know, if you look at it from a comprehensive perspective, the cash flow will look a lot better if you look at it that way. The answer to your question is 100% yes, but it would be very interesting once we start to build this to really see exactly how does it actually pencil out financially. You know, the goal is really to have this project pay for itself, but really it's really what you guys need and what you want.
And then you mentioned the tax credits, and since we are tax exempt, were you saying that we would just receive a check from the feds or whomever? I mean, there's no offset against taxes we pay, it's just, we would just receive a direct
That's correct.
payment?
Yeah, the specific, and you can do your homework on this, specifically IRA was issued for non-tax-paying entities to take advantage of. Specifically, green initiatives, geothermal, solar, and there's some other items. You have to follow certain guidelines, but there's a minimum credit of 30% offset of that capital investment minimum. And then depending on whether or not you're in a low-income zone or whether or not you're in a energy community, or whether or not you're using domestic content, that those get an extra 10%, 10%. So depending on how we build this project, if the investment is $1 million, you're going to get a direct check. Once the system's up and running, you're going to get a direct check back, like $400,000.
And then,
It'll come right back to the city.
okay. And then, are we borrowing to do this? And if we're issuing general obligation bonds, it's going to count against our debt limit?
Could you go back to the
Sure.
20-year, so I can highlight this for the commission?
Oops.
Okay. So, we would be financing this roughly. I mean, we don't know what interest rates are going to be. There's a couple different ways. I have to do more homework on it. This is what the commission decides to do. But we'd be basically be paying roughly this amount, 384, whatever, over 20 years. We could finance it. We could float a bond. It just depends what the best issue is. We could also, just pay it as we go. But it would have to be a finance deal. We'd have to get that money up front and then pay over time.
Yeah, the current customers I'm working with now, Calhoun County, Jackson County, who works very well with tax-exempt lease purchases for municipalities and local government is Bank of America. We actually bid it out to several banks. Bank of America came back with a very favorable rate. And we're currently working with Jackson County to do an add to their project. Like for example, in this example, we're looking at a 4.3% finance over 20 years, and the debt service is roughly $5 million.
Yeah, so you would finance the $5 million, and then assuming that interest rate for those 20 years, your total of those payments will be that $7 million number.
Yeah, that includes the cost of money, 7.6.
Yeah.
There's several options available.
Yeah, and then whether or not we do water stuff, borrowing through the water fund for water projects
Yes,
and,
yeah.
yeah.
However we choose to split up,
Okay.
and I would definitely want to look to our auditors to find guidance on
Okay.
accounting for these
All right,
projects.
thank you, Mr. Mayor.
May I ask a question? The EV charging stations that you put into the proposal, are those energy saving opportunities or just a amenity for the community? How does that work?
It is an amenity. It does have the ability to, I mean, the way the systems work now, that they're smart. They're actually integrated through the internet. So there's ability to actually harvest cost. Let's say, for example, if you pay 7 cents for a kWh, you theoretically could charge 10 cents. Theirs could be some small, because you still have to do maintenance of it and things like that. You still have the ability to offer a service and pay for that service. We have not included, or we don't really take into account that sort of generation because it really depends on use. So, hopefully that answers your question.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I mean, I'm not ready to make a decision tonight. I think I need time, at least. I can't speak for my colleagues, but to kind of digest this and then maybe even schedule a study meeting with city staff and finance to talk more in detail about it. But, I mean, I appreciate the presentation. I'm just not prepared to vote tonight.
Sure.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Commissioner Roselle stole all of my questions. Verbatim. So for the record.
Sorry.
You're wondering the same thing.
Concurrence,
No, I
so.
appreciate that. I also appreciate the commitment that your company is making to diversity, equity, and inclusion. From where our first conversation was 2 years
Yes.
ago to now, I see that you've made progress and are
Yes.
committed. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And I would also add that you presented to the Sustainability Committee 2 years ago, almost now, right? And we've got new members, so just maybe a note to Hank and to Chris is, there's a lot of good information presented here, and I'm digesting all of it too, and what would that look like? What would be the priority? I think it would be good for them to weigh in during this process too.
Absolutely, absolutely. Just to reiterate, our next steps really is to go into engineering. You know, really further develop, engage more resources, further develop specifications, scope of work, really hone in on exactness, because we're not going to be able to get to a final price unless we get exactness. And with that, it requires more investment on our part. So what we'd be asking for is a letter of intent. And that letter of intent really is the intention to enter into an agreement after all the engineering is done and we co-develop, the program to fulfill the needs. And we get there together and to implement a project.
When we get to the point where a letter of intent is on the table, are we being specific as to which parts of the whole proposal we are
No.
pursuing? Or do we still have the opportunity going forward to make those decisions?
Absolutely, absolutely. Part of the next steps in final engineering is really trying to put further definition around what we need, because where we stand today is feasibility. And really, from the standpoint of our experience on estimated pricing, what we need to do now is to really get into exact specifics of what Hank wants, what you guys need, with regards to EV stations don't make sense there, they make sense here, we need 2, we need 4 over there, those type of things. That takes a lot of resources, engineers to develop that specification. After we do that, we're going to engage the local community we're going to bid this out. We're going to get pricing. Once we get all this and we start to line all this up, we'll see exactly a better picture of this, and we can start to plug and play really what suits best for the city. So to answer your questions, the answer is yes, but not, the letter of intent will actually reveal a lot of this more in brilliant color.
What's your experience been, say that we looked at this and said, yeah, this is all wonderful, we're going to do it, we vote tonight, and we say move forward. So from tonight to this letter of intent process, to your bidding out, to moving forward, based on what you've presented here, how long of a period do you see before we've accomplished what's on that list?
Well, I can speak.
Based on past projects,
Sure,
past experience?
sure. What I see here, if we were to get the letter of intent, is probably anywhere from 3 to 5 months with engineering and actually developing scopes of work, pricing, anywhere from 3 to 5 months. Once we do that, we re-present again. You approve the contract, and we go into implementation. And then I would see a project like this, implementation would be 1 year to a year and a half. So from today to completion, probably 2 years.
Okay, thank you.
And Inflation Reduction Act ends in 2020.
I think 2027. The way the verbiage is that the systems have to be up and running. They have to be energized. Let's say if we goal ourselves to get, let's say for example, solar, because solar is going to be applicable for this project. If we goal ourselves to get the solar up and running by the end of year 2024, we can actually get that direct payment in 2025. And we've actually demonstrated that here after year 1.
And Infrastructure Act, we've got till, if we do the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure route, we've got 4 more years.
Yes, yeah, that's also another avenue, correct. So again, the whole idea is really take advantage of these these federal tax credits that are available. Before they weren't available. You know, when you look at this energy savings, that's savings. If we don't do anything, you're actually paying that money to the utility company. We have the ability to tighten the belt and actually save that, and actually use that, harness it to pay for this project. It's pretty powerful when you look at this project. It actually, after 20 years, you've got a net positive cash flow of about $700,000. And still, from our initial analysis, and still pay for everything that we talked about.
All right, thank you for all the information. You
You're
gave us a
welcome.
lot to think about.
You're welcome.
I would like to open it up to public comments, if there are any from the public at this time.
Yes, I'd like to ask a few questions, if I might.
Comments, please.
So, my name is Harold Stack, 13108 Talbot Avenue. Will this plan, with all the HVAC changes, help the city achieve its carbon neutral status that is reflected in the city's energy plan and its energy vision statement? I'm assuming the city is still committed to zero carbon emissions at some point in the city's existence for these buildings. This will not achieve that, will it?
Well,
Will it?
the true definition of carbon neutral is zero.
Is where?
Zero, that means
That's-
that,
yeah,
that means whatever you consume,
yeah,
you-
I understand.
you're not burning.
Sure.
So that's the goal.
Yep, yep.
Will this achieve that? No, it
No.
won't, but it's definitely in that direction.
Would a heat pump help?
Yes, it would.
It would. And in fact, if you made these investments in HVAC now, and 10 years from now decided you actually wanted to go to carbon neutral, you've sort of wasted the resources. Is that not true?
It's all a matter of engineering how we build this project and what our goals are.
Well, I mean, the question I raised for the city is, if you are serious about carbon neutral at some point, as you stated in the document you approved 6 years ago, this is not the right way to go if you're going to eventually invest in heat pumps, which is the only way you can get to reasonably close carbon zero, neutral. So then the other question I have is, did you consider microgrids?
Well, first of all, let me just respond to your first question. When you say this project's not addressing it through heat pumps, these are HVAC replacements.
I understand.
We haven't decided whether or not we're going to go with A, B, or C. So to answer that question, that's not accurate.
So are you saying you're considering heat pumps as one of the replacements?
Yes, why not?
Why is it not up here?
It's listed as HVAC replacement.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right, so somewhere you will spell out whether or not you're going to recommend a heat pump system or not?
That's correct.
Very good. And how about microgrids? Did you consider that?
No.
Why not?
We have an existing operating budget that we're working with.
Mhm.
That's it. That's my goal.
Well, every municipalities, hospitals, universities are all moving to microgrids. The solar energy is great, absolutely, and that's why it sort of lays the foundation for microgrids. Also, then you don't need to go with these noisy, polluting standby
I
generators.
think your question needs to be directed.
Well,
Okay.
you're the expert, right?
Yes, I can answer.
So, okay, go ahead.
We have a value statement that we're delivering to the city. This project is self-funding in 20 years.
So have you explained to the commission and staff the advantages and disadvantages of microgrids?
I'm not considering that.
Okay, well, of course, it's a big secret. Okay, so,
This is supposed to just be public comment.
okay.
We're getting kind of argumentative.
I'm commenting, this plan has some serious
No,
problems.
it's more like
No.
cross-examination.
That's what it
I
sounds
agree.
like to
I'm
me
asking you
too.
to
Yeah.
think more broadly about what you're doing.
Cross-examination
And
with a
we
little bit
agree
of
with you.
rudeness.
I think.
Oh, you're
Joe
actually
was-
responding to me
Hold
for a
on,
change.
Mr. Stack, just a minute.
Go ahead.
Joe made a very clear comment. We're nowhere near ready to make a move here.
Good to hear.
We're here tonight to listen, we're here tonight to consider, and then where we go from here depends on a lot of things. There's a lot more input to be obtained before we would make a decision. So, all your comments are appreciated and they're useful, and they're fine, and they're part of the discussion that the city needs to have going forward. But we're not ready here tonight. I'm not. I share Commissioner Rosel's point. I think I heard Commissioner Elder say the same thing.
good.
Nobody here is ready to sign a letter of intent tonight.
Good to
We're
hear.
here to sign an intent to listen.
Question, the city lighting, DTE, are those numbers that you use from DTE?
Yes.
And does that reflect the Public Service Commission's ruling on December 1st about DTE using excessively expensive and excessively lit LED lights for cities?
We're going to work along the guidelines of DTE and the requirements.
And you read the Public Service Commission report?
Again, we're going to work along the guidelines of the requirements of DTE.
Excellent. Okay.
Any other comments, Mr.
I
Stagg?
think that's just fine. I'm totally satisfied.
Thank you. Okay, seeing none other, we'll close public participation there and move on. Thanks again for your time. We will, I'm sure we're going to have a lot more questions for you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Item number 2 is a matter of consideration of appointing a SEMCOG delegate and alternate. I have agreed to be the delegate, and Ethan Hahn has agreed to be our alternate. So do we have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3 is a matter of considering approval of the Gillum Recreation Center as a polling location for Precinct 3. Heidi, would you like to explain why we want to do that?
So, recent legislation has increased the precinct sizes from 2,999 to 4,999. We have 5,600 registered voters, and we have 5 precincts. So we thought it would be cost effective to reduce down to 4, especially given the early voting. Everyone has the opportunity now to vote 9 days. Plus, we have about, between the permanent absentee list and the permanent ballot list, we have about 3,200 people on that list. So that leaves, I don't do math, but, you know, of the 56, we could easily go down to 4. So we're gonna see how 4 goes, and maybe eventually go down to 3, but right now, we have taken precinct 3 and precinct 5, cut out the line and merged them to create a larger 3. And moving them from this location, obviously, on a presidential, this room gets very crowded. It's either hot, cold, we've had leaks. So we just felt the rec center was a better facility to house, you know, a bigger election. So that's what we're seeking your approval, to approve the rec center to be precinct number 3.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I have a question. Heidi, that makes a lot of sense. Do you have a communications plan? I mean, it was publicly communicated, but moving forward in this next election.
Well, first of all, we had to send out new ID cards to we sent it to both 3 and 5 voters, so all those people got a new ID card. It's in the e-blast continuously. And Sarah and I did a really bad, but we did what would you call it? Public service?
A video?
A video.
Yeah, I saw it.
It wasn't bad. It was good. Yeah, it was good.
So probably we'll do more of those. I think we got people that were interested and clicked on those and actually watched them. So we maybe do a shorten and continue to just push that out there on all our social medias, on our e-blast, on the website. you know, word of mouth as much as we can, so.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor? I know that,
Election director has something.
yeah, that's right. I know that the school district typically closes on election day because a lot of times, you know, we're in Burton for precincts as well. Thoughts on the rec center and the library, just to free up as much of that parking lot as possible, about maybe, closing the library or the rec center on that day?
I have talked to Tracy, Rec Director Tracy Shanley, about closing as much programming as possible on that day, so that parking lot would be fully free. I have not discussed it with the library, but I will
Okay.
definitely discuss it with.
I mean, we can park on side streets too. Some people walk, you know, it's close enough to walk. But just as much of the parking lot available to voters, I think, is ideal, so, yeah. But I think this is, I'm glad you recommended this. I think this is a good thing in light of everything you've said, so.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask a question? So if my math is correct, it seems like we would only need 2 precincts. So what would the criteria be for evaluating whether we would further reduce the number of precincts within the city?
I think one component is going to be how much early voting is utilized and how much our permanent, because eventually we're going to phase out that permanent application and everyone's going to go to a permanent ballot. And as that list increases, obviously we're not going to have the need. I personally, and I think talking with Joe, we don't want to see people wait in line. I think that is something that we want for our voters is a quick in and out. Would we ever go down to 2? I don't know, but definitely consider 3 at some point, given, you know, early voting and perm ballot, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 4 is authorizing the 2023-24 mid-year budget amendments. Ethan, do you want to take us through those?
Yeah, there weren't too many that I identified this round, mostly because a lot of our expenditures are seasonal based. So, you know, we're watching the winter, we're watching construction season, because some of the expenditures hit late in the fiscal year, because our fiscal year ends June 30th. There will be more adjustments with the third quarter budget amendments presented in April. But for now, these are the ones that absolutely need to get done. And I'm just waiting to see how the winter season progresses. There's just 2 short. One of them was just the audit went a little bit over, not much. So we had income and revenue increases that were unplanned that covered that expenditure increase. And then the other one was just there was a few things on the administrative side, professional services we paid out for that were higher than usual. So we again, revenue increases, canceled those out as well.
Okay, do we have a motion to authorize the amendments?
So moved.
Second.
Comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we have the first reading of a couple ordinances. Item number 5, I'm going to turn this over to Hank Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before you is a proposed sign ordinance revision. Again, this represents discussions that staff has had with our city attorney, Carol Rosati. And the project was drafted with goals to regulate temporary signs, clarify types of signs, allowable duration, add graphics to make the sole sign ordinance more user-friendly. This is substantially larger and more descriptive than our past sign ordinance. It was introduced in September, worked on a public meeting in October with the city attorney's office present to answer questions. And at a meeting November 27th, 2023, a public hearing was held and the planning commission voted unanimously with 5 members present to recommend this ordinance to the city commission. As this is the first reading, there are a couple things that we have since looked at that we might want to tweak just a little bit, and I'll certainly let the city attorney address that. So, Carol, if you would.
As you know, this really is coming to you as a result of the United States Supreme Court decision in the Reed versus City of Gilbert case, and our ordinance was really inadequate based upon that ruling. I know it's really long. I know it looks like a lot, but we've tried to cover everything and do it in a way where it's content neutral and treats all signs alike that are alike. In going through the ordinance tonight, I saw a couple things, and I don't know if it was an error that they were stricken, so I need to check on that, because I think there's a couple things that need to go back in. But generally, it will come back to you in this format, with the exception of possibly a couple little tweaks, which I would point out at the next meeting. Are there any specific questions about it?
I take it this mirrors other municipalities' efforts to modernize their existing sign ordinances.
Well, actually, I was probably the first one that took on the task, and a lot of municipalities kind of mirrored what I've done.
I was going to
so.
give you credit, give you the opportunity to claim credit.
No, I mean, this was, I actually started working on the first one, you know, COVID was good for sign ordinances. You had a lot of time to bury in and actually figure out what to do with them. So this is generally what a lot of the communities are adopting, what I put together.
And I think, personally, I think the specificity is good. I think the demonstrative examples are good and clear. I think, I realize it is somewhat voluminous,
Yeah.
but on the other hand, it's an important ordinance because it treads along the First Amendment issues. But I think that it reflects the balance in that debate, and like I said, I presumed this is not your first rodeo with this. And, you know, that, it's, like I said, I looked through it, it's, you know, like I said, it is voluminous, but, if there's something particularly that you think is particularly noteworthy, you can either address it now or, you know, send us an email
Yeah,
with what.
I think the major concept is, you know, under the old ordinances, you would have all kinds of different regulations for a political sign or a real estate sign or a garage sale sign or all these type of things. And what the court has said is, you're basing those regulations on what the thing is, what the content of the speech is, and you can't do that. So we've tried to create an ordinance that anything that's a permanent sign is regulated the same, and these temporary signs, no matter what they are regulated the same. The one thing that I'm looking at changing is there was a provision that was stricken in here, and that is with respect to the duration of signs, because when it comes to First Amendment signs, we can't regulate the duration. If somebody wants to express their opinion, they could express their opinion, you know, subject to certain things. And I had an exemption for those in there that looks like it was stricken. I'm going to put that back in. But that's basically the gist of it. And working with Hank a lot in terms of what signs do you really want, you know, in your business areas, and trying to address some of the new things. What about murals? What about some of these artistic things that are now coming into play? So we've tried to cover it all in this.
So communities that have tried in the past to regulate the duration of when political signs can go out and proximity to an election, that's all kind of out the window
Right.
now. Yeah.
Right. And there actually were a couple federal cases before.
Right, I was aware, yeah.
That said, okay, you can regulate, you know, size.
Yeah, very limited,
You
yeah.
can regulate location, but you can't regulate time or, you know, that type of thing. So, you know, we've tried to redo everything to bring it all in compliance with what's out there right now.
Okay.
Did I hear you say this does or does not address murals?
It does.
Because I see murals as being one of those gray areas between aesthetics
Well,
and conveying information. You know, it's,
and this was a conversation that Hank and I had, but we felt we needed to do something. So you may want to look at what we added about the murals. But
yeah.
I think there's one thing, there are murals that are purely artistic, and then there are murals that become actually a sign. Maybe for a business, but then maybe it's a First Amendment expression. So it gets a little tricky. So we've tried to sort of
Well, it does. It
Yeah.
does.
lay out something saying we think this is okay, but this isn't.
Because, you know, we have the,
You have two right now.
well, we have, you mean on buildings?
Mhm.
I mean, well, I know there's Monarch. What's the other one?
We have one right here.
Our own.
Oh, I know that. My wife worked on that one. I'm
Yeah.
aware of that.
So there's the two that exist
Right,
right now,
yeah.
so we felt we needed to address them somewhere.
And part of this is making sure that we try to hit everything. If you take a look at our zoning ordinance that predated what we've come up with here, it was minuscule in content compared to what we have here. And with the graphics, with the drawings, with the explanations that we now offer, or we hope to offer, should you approve it, that would really make things a lot easier for sign companies. It may reduce the amount of variances that we need for ZBA because it'll define what's allowed and what's not, perhaps a little bit clearer. And with that, we'd like to move forward on this. And, you know, as we find, a zoning ordinance is a living, breathing document. And as we find a need for change, we proffer those changes.
I have a question. You said that one of the things that you were going to take a look at again was the duration allowed for First Amendment signs. Was that the terminology that you used?
Yes.
What is considered a First Amendment sign?
Anything where you're conveying some personal message, basically. It can be ideological, it can be religious, it can be whatever. But
Political.
you're expressing your personal opinion on something as First Amendment speech. And you'll see, we do have a section in this that talks about signs that are not regulated by the ordinance, and one of the things is signs that would be First Amendment speech.
So thinking about temporary signs that I see a lot of around the city, it's like my hypothetical high school student is a member of the volleyball team and there's a sign on my front lawn indefinitely. Where does that fall under these definitions?
Well, that would be a temporary sign, so that's gonna fall under the temporary sign,
but not as a First Amendment sign because it's not conveying a belief.
That's one of those things that you hope they just eventually take them down, but when you look at the, oh God, and I don't have the pages marked, but
The
you get
kids
into-
eventually graduate.
Right.
Exactly.
They graduated from high school, then
20 years ago.
and it's still out there.
Keep the dream alive.
You know, it
Right.
talks about temporary signs in residential districts being, you know, and we do define how much they can have and how long, all right? I guess it becomes sort of a thing, is that really an expression of speech, you know? You tend to think of First Amendment signs being more, really you're expressing an opinion, not, hey, I love my kid.
Right.
So,
That's an opinion.
right, so we'll just have to deal with those as they come.
Question for either of you. And first, I want to recognize the Planning Commission for the work that they did on this. I mean, everything you guys are asking was robust conversations over multiple meetings, so really appreciate their work on it. At the public meetings, or have you gotten any feedback, questions? Are there reoccurring themes from the community as a whole?
We haven't gotten a ton of feedback on this. I think that what we've done is we've certainly noticed it. We advertised it, we put it in. But I think because we have such a small business and a district with like 6 properties in it, and we have the TD district, which is up on Woodward, which would be the other district that would be there, and those are primarily offices currently, that the effects on this wouldn't be as great. So as they don't change tenants that often, this doesn't come up as often. But what it does do is it puts our sign ordinance out there, so in the event redevelopment does occur, we have our structure in place to allow, to show the developers what we can and cannot allow for that. So I think that's a big deal. Currently, we have a couple businesses up on Woodward where people do change the businesses, and they do have a sign out there. So this allows us to, kind of integrate those people into our new sign ordinance as that happens.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Any comments from the public? As a first reading, do we need a motion, Carol, or?
Yeah, just move to introduce the ordinance.
Okay, we have a motion to introduce the ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, just as an additional addendum onto that, you know, if we pass this and we find that there's a need to enhance, improve, change, delete, whatever, I mean, we can do that. It's not like this is it and it's not gonna change, so it's,
Yeah, especially with these type of ordinances,
Right.
because you have to see how it plays out. And, something will come up and you'll say, wow, I never thought of that. So these are always a living document.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks. Item number 6 is a matter of considering adoption. This, once again, is a first reading of the Chapter 40 of the zoning code, Article 6, regarding accessory buildings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Basically, again, before you is an accessory structure revision. The impetus for this revision was the desire to allow larger lots to have larger accessory structures. A long time ago, we went ahead and very successfully went about how to allow regulation for maximum house sizes and that, but we never did anything for the accessory structures. So the R1A lots, which are almost an acre lot, had the same size accessory structure as the R1E lots, which are 5,000 square foot lots. So the reality is that this is just simply bringing this into line with a sliding scale for the different zone districts, which allow the larger lots to have larger accessory structures. This doesn't affect the garages, this affects like the outbuildings. For example, in the R1D zone district, which encompasses the Bronx area here, for the most part, except for the R1E on Hart. But those districts are allowed a 10 by 10 accessory structure. The problem with the 10 by 10 accessory structure is that while that may work great in the R1E district, in the R1D district where the lots are a little bit bigger, in the R1C district where the lots are bigger, and B and A where the lots are even much bigger, we don't have the freedom, or they don't have the freedom to make larger accessory structures. So where does that come into play? That comes into play like an R1A lot, which is a 3/4 of an acre lot that wants to put a pool house up. Storage for their equipment, storage so that they put their stuff inside of it. So they won't fit in a 10 by 10 area, but that's over 3/4 to an acre. And so as a result, that would get a larger building. And it wouldn't really affect it because it wouldn't be out of scale or place with the structure, with the size of the lot. So basically, this is an attempt to kind of keep pace with the sizes of the houses that we allow for the different zone districts and allow that to go forward with some changes for that. Another impetus for this too is when you're taking a look and you go through the ads for pre-made accessory structures and accessory sheds and that, which I do try to keep track of, we found that for a lot of them, they were 10 by 12 structures, and those were prefab structures. So right away, that was ruled out. So at least half of the Menards, half of the Home Depot, and half of the other structures that were available commercially were not able to be used on most of our lots. So we wanted to make sure that we did try to correct that. So having said that, that's what we have as a sliding scale, which starts out at the R1E, which is 100 square feet, R1D at 125, R1C at 150 square feet, R1D at okay, there's a typo there. R1E, which would be 100 square feet. And then the R1A would be 200 square feet. So there was one, and on that note, Carol and I both talked before the meeting, and this was going to be one where we had to tweak one little thing on it before it comes back for the second reading.
Yeah, the second sentence in
Yeah.
subparagraph 1 should read, a private garage or carport shall not exceed 600 square feet in floor area. So that'll come back to the second reading with that language.
Yeah, it's a slight semantic change, but the idea is that we wanted to allow the residents with larger lots more freedom to be able to fully use their lots, yet not go over what the lot coverages would allow, because the lot coverages would still apply.
So Hank, this is all based on district.
That's
Was
correct.
there any consideration or conversation to people that have multiple lots in a smaller district, in a district with smaller lots?
Well, if they have smaller lots, or if the situation arises, and again, this is like, I wouldn't even say that would apply to the living, breathing document. that would be something where if you had somebody that had 3 lots in an R1E district and had that, that would be a tailor-made case for the zoning board of appeals.
Well,
Variance.
I mean, I think it reads,
Yeah.
they could have two, they could have 2 per lot up to 100 square feet. So
Right.
if they had
If-
3 lots,
If they had 3 lots
They could
combined, they would be
combine,
able
yeah.
to do that.
right.
But if not, the zoning board of appeals is always available.
Okay, do we have a motion to accept the first reading?
So moved.
Second.
Any public comment? Since this
May I
is
just
the
ask
first
a point
reading.
of clarification again, Mr. Mayor?
Okay, I'll close public and go back to the
Sorry,
commission.
I
Sure.
apologize.
No problem.
And perhaps this is because I do not know the definition of an accessory structure, but are there limitations as to what that can be, that it would like this allow for guest houses of clearly
No.
very small, but like for the definition of what an accessory building is?
Accessory structure in that case, or in the case of this, would be termed for something like a shed, like a pergola, like something of that nature, not to exceed the square footage for this, but it would not allow for an additional living quarters on the property.
Okay.
You get one principal structure.
No granny houses.
Not unless the commission decides otherwise.
All right. Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 7 is a reappointment. Let me get to my notes here. We have 3 reappointments to boards and commissions that we would like to make. 2 of them, actually, is the library a mayoral appointment? I think it is. I think all 3 of these are mayoral appointments. So I would like to recommend appointing David Schwartz to the Planning Commission, reappointing Judy Goldsmith to the Library Advisory Board. And just to clarify, we appointed Commissioner Olsman as the liaison to the Historic District Commission at the last meeting, but that is actually a voting member, so we need to add Commissioner Olsman as a voting member of the Historic District Commission. Someone could make that motion.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any public comment? Comments or questions from the commission? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 8 has been removed. Our city manager, I should have mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, is excused this evening, feeling a little under the weather. We wish him the best. But Ethan did want to address one issue.
One issue that Mr. Manager asked me to bring up to the commission tonight is just going over what the city is doing, with the big snow we had this weekend. So the Public Works Department worked 15 to 20 overtime hours this weekend. Sidewalks, tree limbs, the 50-mile-an-hour winds were a big issue. So they were trying to clear tree limbs off the roads and the sidewalks, moving to other less dangerous, less important areas as the week progresses, and sidewalks and roads have been cleared as well. So just wanted to provide a quick update on that. I spoke to the DPW supervisor earlier today, and he's been in communication with the city manager as well regarding this. So we're trying to get everything back to normal as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Moving on to commissioners' comments. Pro Tem Lozelle.
No comments, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Olsman.
No comment.
Commissioner Steinhardt.
No comments.
Commissioner Elder.
No comments, thank you.
No comments for me. With that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Kitchen's gonna remind me.
Oh,
Yeah.
be probably April is obvious.